Alright, hi guys. So this video is going to cover two things. First, my experience with the Q&A, and then second, my spoiler review of Jurassic World Dominion. And I have quite a few notes set up, so I'm just kind of reading off of that and trying to ad-lib as much as I can. So now, full disclaimer, this is a very fan-based approach to a review, so it is going to be pretty biased. Now, to talk about the Q&A for Jurassic World Dominion, I went to New York last Thursday evening to attend the hub of the Jurassic World Dominion Q&A that Collider's Stephen Weintraub was hosting with director-writer Colin Trevorrow, co-writer Emily Carmichael, and cast members Bryce Dallas Howard, DeWanda Wise, and Jeff Goldblum. And I first want to really thank some of my family members who were willing to go for this, even though one of the streams was held at my theater in PA. And so when we got there, we basically were told to head on right up. So right up to the IMAX theater, and it was very unique because of its sheer size and setup for that AMC. And basically, we got seated just a few minutes before the Q&A started. And then Steven started the show, basically starting us off with a featurette. Everyone was having a ball with that. And then they brought up everyone that I mentioned and clearly a loud cheer for Jeff Goldblum, who entered with so much swagger. It was great. And so basically throughout the Q&A, general questions they were talking about with their experience with filming, the unique cinematic experience, especially after the initial lockdowns. And you can check out some of the footage I recorded attached to this video. But as a disclaimer, it's not everything in the fan portion, but they did answer a few fan questions of those who submitted across the US with a QR code at the beginning. To name a few, what pet dinosaur they would have, which scene they wish they could be in that they weren't involved in, and the actor experience. And overall, it really showed that their chemistry with their legacy and the world cast meshed really well, and that after the Q&A, they gave a little break before the movie started. And so now, before the Dominion review, I do want to first talk about the IMAX theater itself. The AMC Lincoln Square IMAX screen was bonkers. Bigger and louder than any IMAX that I've been to. And the sound design and visuals just felt super impactful. It almost felt like a concert in the beginning because the initial sequence took quite a bit of time for my senses to adjust. And Michael Giacchino's score was even more powerful. But now on with the movie. My expectations for this movie were that genetic power is unleashed, so that means a whole lot of everything can happen and not just dinosaurs. What that was is the main question. And having read the novels, I knew Biosin was clearly up to no good. And so the immediate reaction I posted was that the movie was awesome, and although the first act was a bit fast-paced, it really honored a lot of what I consumed as a fan these past few years. And so, yeah, the first act was clunky. Some transitions were a bit jarring. My least favorite one, I'll say, is very much when it transitions from Texas to Utah, which I believe is Dr. Grant's dig site. And it felt like, poof, Statler just apparated. It just felt very jarring. But I was really happy to see Daniela Pineda and Justice Smith for the time they were in for that first act. And the world side of things, it really showed for character development. Claire is seeking redemption for the weight of the recent calamities that she's faced, feeling pretty big on her shoulders, all the while trying to be a good mom to Maisie. And then we have Owen, who focuses on being a protector in this film. You see that quite a bit, especially like even in the third act where he like really moves up and tries to protect everyone. And then Maisie herself, she wants a bit of freedom, but also a bit of closure so that she can truly be her own person, given the reveal from Fallen Kingdom. And I agree with many. The Now This segment in the beginning, hosted by actress Jasmine Chu, was an interesting choice, a little mixed, because it had a lot of the footage from the prologue in the F9 screening last summer and Battle at Big Rock, so a bit of wonky CGI. And I think it worked even better in the ending, like just to kind of go with the themes, but I'll talk about that later. So with the legacy side, it's interesting to see how Sattler was the driver of the story, much like Colin said she would be, and that she works on something a little more contemporary to her field. And lovely to see her, Dr. Grant and Dr. Malcolm, with their soft moments of their banters and how they evolve a bit over the course of the film. So, in terms of plot, we see that Bison is the antagonist in both the legacy and world side. We see that for the legacy cast, Bison wants to be the apex of genetic engineering companies by any means necessary, even if it means that their creations take control of the natural order of things. And then in the world side, that still resonates there, and they clearly show their flaws in being able to have control, so they look to Maisie and Beta for that answer. And so basically, the second act infuses Michael Crichton and in Mission Impossible James Bond a lot. It is loaded. And the Malta sequence was phenomenal, showcasing the dino mayhem of bad actors using dinosaurs for their financial gain. The visuals amidst the carnage was really well done, blending CG and practical effects pretty seamlessly, and everyone applauded at the end of that sequence. Just loved it. And now I believe it was just before, but the Bison Sanctuary is very cool in concept, and I'm really looking forward to playing the expansion on Jurassic World Evolution 2 coming out June 14th. And the Camp Cretaceous nod that they also gave during that flight to the Bison Sanctuary will be interesting to kind of see how that all develops when we get to see how they handle that in the final season in July. Excuse me. Really, the second act, we get a lot more clarifications, like with Maisie's origins and her mother Charlotte, and I think it kind of touches on the designer babies and ethical aspect of all that. And Henry Wu is clearly overworked and wants to seek redemption for his work in his field and with those various companies he's worked for over the course of the franchise. And clearly, with the locusts damaging any crops that aren't bisons, this is the man-made cataclysmic change that Ian was talking about in Fallen Kingdom. And I really liked newcomer heroes Mamadou's Ramsey and Dewanda's Kayla. Personally, I like Deechan as a villain more than Dodson, but that may be just because I always found the character annoying from the books even. So I think since Campbell Scott is going to be voicing Dodson in the Evolution 2 campaign, maybe he might grow on me a bit more. So we'll see. And oh yeah, I'll also say that I jumped out of my seat multiple times in this act, especially during the Amber Mines with the Dimetrodons and like some of the Atrociraptor sequences is quite fun. But once we get to the third act, like Conjavaro said about the plot structure, the two sets of cast members really barrel roll into each other. And the cataclysmic change is highlighted with Dodson thinking he could assert control over the locusts, but it's clearly an illusion. You know how many antibacterial sprays have those percentages on them. It's associated with the chance of a small percentage being resistant and proliferating. So I think that was an interesting touch with the locusts. Dodson's negligence about that really shows here. And with the final battle, though, visually it was phenomenal on the big screen. And I loved that they gave a nod to the prologue where after Rexy is knocked out, the close-up on the eye and her pupils contracting again when she re-enters the fight. It was great. And then the Therizinosaurus, even in the sequence, you know, when Claire lands in that territory, it was really cool, just like the Therizinosaurus commanding the scene. And even so here, it was amazing. And even seeing it command the scene as well in the final act. And the final roar, I was cheering like I was at a sports event. No kidding. It was that amazing on the IMAX screen. And with where our human characters are left off, but at the end of that, they continue to work on setting things right. And here, like I mentioned, the Now This report landed better here, in my opinion, and Charlotte Lockwood's found footage, I felt were really impactful. The words were really impactful. And the montage in the end really honed in on Colin's message that from here on out, we need to learn to coexist, to take care of each other and find balance, because that way, life will truly find a way. And I also posted this. The final shot feels like an homage to the prologue to convey the literal dawn of a new era. And now on with the negatives. Jurassic World Dominion is not a perfect film, in my opinion. Pacing was my main problem, and I felt certain scenes could have been a bit more fleshed out. Blue and Beta were the weakest visually, mostly in the snowy scenes, but that's not to say their relationship wasn't adorable. Lego Holiday Special with Blue and Beta on Peacock, please. Um, and I think Dodson was on the slightly ineffective side as far as villains go. But I think if we had actual bias in marketing before Dominion, it would have landed really well, in my opinion. And as I mentioned before, with Campbell Scott reprising his role in the Evolution 2 campaign, this will be really interesting to see how they develop his character. And now to the main criticism I've seen from general reviewers and critics. The main problem people had with the sequels was the repetitive nature of Dino Mayhem. Not just Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, but even Lost World and Jurassic Park 3. And I feel like this film sets to balance that to an extent with the conservation aspect. And the locusts are the driving force of the scientific thriller that Colin Gerard described the film to be, and the Michael Crichton infused themes of the dangers of mishandling genetic power and thinking absolute control over the natural order is achievable. These locusts were in the prologue, much like the dinosaurs that roamed among them. So yes, I think the prologue would have been placed, should have been placed here to give that impact on the narrative, even with the final shot that showcases the dawn of a new era. But I think it also really harkens back to the discussion of the dining table in Jurassic Park with Hammond, Gennaro, and the Legacy Trio about just like the wonders of uh, genetic modifications and the dangers of it. So another criticism I heard was that dinosaurs integrating with society and having, for the most part, done so early on and be treated as modern animals was a mistake. But that was the point of the franchise to begin with, to show empathy. And honestly, the marketing more than enough showed that. Whether with Now This, Chaos Theorem's Dino Tracker's website, and even just general commercials like the Jeep one that just released. We've seen a lot. And so I think it's important not to have too much of a wide adventure film in this. Otherwise, excuse me, it would just seem exhausting and it would leave little room for future installments. Now, on to closing thoughts. I do think it was a mistake to write the epic conclusion to the Jurassic era because not everybody understands that there's more and there can be more. I know myself, I want to try my hand at a few fan projects if time permitting because there are so many possibilities for isolated adventures as shows and movies after this, even in prequel form as well. And Jurassic World Dominion is a scientific thriller that pays homage to not only the fan content but also Michael Crichton's forward-thinking philosophies in his sci-fi novels. It's something unique. It's not perfectly executed everywhere, but it did something that I enjoyed. And as someone who took biology in undergrad and is a cinephile, it just brings some nice perspective, even if there are inaccuracies. But overall, I appreciate the effort and the journey the trilogy took. So thank you, Colin Trevorrow, Emily Carmichael, Frank Marshall, Steven Spielberg, the entire cast and crew, to everyone involved in this franchise that I've enjoyed for so long. Thank you.